How much wood could you chop if you chopped wood? Why don't you ask the wood enthusiasts?
Hello, this is Larry Woodstone. Welcome to our next episode of Wood Enthusiasts. We are so excited. I've got Gary Gilbert here on the phone with me right off the bat. Gary.
Hey.
Gary, how you doing? Oh my goodness.
I'm well, you?
Gary, I've got to say, every time I get you on the phone, it is literally, and Gary, I mean this literally, in the literal sense of the word literal. I literally look forward to hearing your voice and talking to you on the phone because the ample amounts of wisdom that you bring, and because of our friendship, Gary.
Well, I saw Monica yesterday, too.
Oh, my goodness, Monica. Oh, how's she doing? How's her leg, Gary?
It's okay.
She spilled a very hot bowl of soup on her leg, didn't she, Gary?
She did.
Oh, my goodness. I call her, Gary, I call her Mons. I say Mons. It's kind of like a short form that I've given Monica. I've always called her Mons.
That's just... We've always laughed about it.
Oh, and Gary, we're so excited about today. We have such an exciting episode. We had a little bit of a fun intro there, but I was just doing it because I was just getting my clothes back on. I had to get all my clothes back on.
Were you working in the shop again?
Yeah, I was out in the shop again. Yeah, so I just had to get dressed, get my clothes back on. We are really excited today, Gary, and I'm going to tell you one of our favorite seasons is upon us, and that's both winter and the Christmas season, isn't it, Mr. Gilbert?
Absolutely. It's the time of year where it's actually normal for everyone to bring trees into their house, not just all year round.
And that's really the most beautiful thing. And I've got 19, and I haven't quite started yet. Obviously, me and Bernice have a ways to go, but we've got 19 trees set up so far, and we're really excited because we just started on one of the kids' rooms.
That's good. That's good to start.
And Gary, one of the things that you bring to the table, and I've said this, and Gary, you know, I've been telling you for years and years and years and years and years and years, and I've been telling pretty much everybody in the wood enthusiast community that one of our biggest assets by having you, Gary, is the amount of wisdom that you bring to the table. And, you know, as I'm kind of decorating my house, you and me had a conversation, Gary, and I kind of want you to take the lead here. Tell us a little bit of that conversation we had when I was talking about the type of trees I was going to bring into the house for Christmas.
Well, the most common types that most families use are either of the spruce, pine, or fir variety. SPF, as you like to call it.
That's right. That's the construction name, Gary. Because I like the construction guys with the swooping hats and the big broad guys. I've always related to them.
That's right, and that's what I've always appreciated about you. You're able to relate to so many different cultures.
And what did you say, Gary? I said, so here's the conversation. This is for our audience, and this is an exciting topic. And I know we've got people kind of flocking to their speakers here, and they're throwing them in their earbuds, and they're saying, let's have a listen and see what Gary's going to say. But we had a conversation, and I said, I've got some blue spruce coming in, and I've got some fir, and I've got some pines, different types of pines, obviously white pine, sea pine. And Gary, you shocked me because you said this. Go ahead and say it, Gary.
Well, if you're bringing in the coniferous tree. Well, the most common trees are the balsam fir, and its characteristics are dark green. It's got a strong fragrance, and what most people like are the branches are fairly strong if you're putting various decorations on. The second most common, I think, just from my conversations with the various people, is called the Fraser fir.
The Fraser fir. That's one of my... Gary, I didn't tell you this, but we just ordered 12. We just ordered 12 Frasers from the guy down the street because he's a landscaper. He brings trees in. But those are my favorite ones, Gary. Fraser firs.
So that's beautiful. It's going to have a yellowish green, I bet.
That's right. It's got a kind of a yellowish green hue. And you know how I like hues, Gary. I always like hues, different hues.
Mm-hmm. My favorite is Hefner, actually.
Well, you know what, Gary? I've actually never brought those inside the house because of they're a little bit messy. They're kind of known to be a messy tree. They die a little bit early, and they can't. This is kind of a conversation for Glen. I don't want to bring this up, but they die a little bit early if they dry out, and they die a tad early. But Gary, that's not what the shocking part is, Gary. And I mean, obviously, this is the kind of information people want. They want to know this kind of stuff, and you're listing it off just like it's nothing. You're just basically a walking encyclopedia for wood, which is amazing. But Gary, you said something to me that this is the first time, and I'm embarrassed to say this, Gary, because I've known you for years and years and years and years. But this is the first time I've had this where you brought a different type of tree to your house.
That's right. For the past 10 years now, my tradition in my family is we bring in a nice little maple tree.
Oh my goodness!
And I find it works beautiful. It provides a beautiful fragrance.
Oh my goodness!
To your home, and it's a symbol of strength.
Oh my goodness!
I
Gary,
find the other SPFs of maybe a little bit of a weaker wood.
My goodness, Gary! This is Gary. This is Gary when you get him upset. He's a chatty Cathy. People can't even stop Gary when he's not on a microphone. But this is, when you get Gary worked up and when you get Gary talking about wood and trees, this is kind of his form. This is his forte. And I always say that, Gary. I always say this is your forte. It's kind of it's a French word for strength. It's kind of something we're really good at. It's French. Je ne peux parler en français. I always say that. I can't speak French. Je ne peux parler en français, monsieur. But it's a little joke, Gary. But Gary, this is really surprising me because, discrimination is something that's very real, very serious in our day and age. And I think typecasting in Hollywood is also, it's a mild form of discrimination. And what we've done is we've typecast the trees, and we said, because of history, we're going to bring in this type. And Gary said no. Gary said, heck no. Didn't you, Gary?
No, that's discrimination.
Gary said, heck no. Gary, you put your gall darn foot down, didn't you, Gary?
Absolutely. You shouldn't discriminate against the deciduous, just because people for years have been bringing in the coniferous, and to me, it's a softwood, and I'd rather the symbol of strength in my home than the symbol of weakness. This
is truly amazing. And you put bulbs. You put wooden bulbs on there that you obviously use your lathe, and you carve out some wooden bulbs, and you have. I mean, you and me, we spend years and years and years and days and days and days and months making wonderful ornaments, and we pass them around through our family through the generations, obviously. And this is something that you like to hang off your maple tree, and I think that's, Gary, I want to be honest, I think that's a glorious symbol of family, is what I really think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, I'm excited. As I know, we have a hairy episode today, and there's some things that you don't know that are going to be coming kind of shooting down the pipe here, and we're pretty excited about it because I've got the team here. Obviously, for the people in the audience here, Gary, he's not on set. Me and Gary live quite a distance away from each other, and in the winter or in the fall, it's a tad hard to get to each other. So Gary, I send Steph up there, and Steph kind of sets up she designs a studio, and she kind of sets him up so he feels like he's at home, and he is at home, and that's important. So in the studio, in his home, she makes it feel like he is at home, and I think that's really special, Gary.
All the work she puts into everything she does.
She puts so much work into your office there. She makes it really feel like like a part of your home, which it is, and that's important. But Gary, this is exciting because we're going to have someone. I'm just going to be calling someone here. You know this. We're going to talk to Mr. Friend because we've had some issues, and this is something that you and me kind of want to both address. So I'm not always good on the telephone. So Lisa, can you take this telephone? Yeah, we're just going to call. Sorry, Gary, just give me 1 second. We're just going to try to call Mr. Friend.
No, not a problem.
Lisa's going to get him on the phone, Gary. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa.
Line while your call is completed.
Thanks, Lisa.
Long-distance charges may apply.
Oh, Gary, there's long-distance charges, Gary. We're going to have to talk to the producers.
The Clutterbucks will cover it, I'm sure.
We're going to have to talk to the producers. Gary, we're going to have to talk to some of the producers about some of the charges here on my phone that are occurring.
Not a problem.
Hello, this is Pastor Josh.
Oh my goodness, Gary, we got Pastor Josh on the phone already. He's already answered the phone.
Pastor Reverend Josh.
Who's this, sir?
This is Gary Gilbert and Larry Woodstone. Mr. Josh Friend, how are you doing?
Oh, hi, Gary and my Larry. How are you guys?
Oh my goodness. Did you hear that, Gary? He called us Gary and his Larry.
He always makes me smile.
Well, that's just it. That's the thing about Mr. Friend. Mr. Friend, are you able to hear Gary?
I can hear him. But slightly. If he spoke with maybe a little bit more a robust voice, that would be great.
Well,
nobody can speak as robust as you.
Oh, there's the challenge.
Ooh, but that was very, very good. That was woodsy.
It sounds like Pastor Reverend friend Josh Friend was putting out a bit of a challenge to you, Gary. So it sounds like.
No challenge at all. All friendly.
So, Josh, we are so excited. We're so excited here at the Wood Enthusiast community. And I know you know that because we spoke, in depth today about some amazing things. But
Of course.
I had to call you a little bit later. I was a little bit behind. I had to put all my clothes back on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Out in the wood shop again, eh?
That's right. That's exactly where I was. The kids went to bed and I just shot out to the garage as soon as I could. But we're excited because we've got a really exciting program. But we have a few things we want to cover with you, Mr. Friend. And that's why me and Gary asked if we could talk to you tonight because...
Sure. Well, yeah. You can call me Reverend Friend.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks so much, Mr. Friend, for the reminder. Mr. Reverend Friend, sometimes, me and Josh, you and me go back years and years and years and years. And I have a habit of calling you Josh because of some of our past.
Of course.
But it sounds like you're interested in living in the present. And that's important to you, Mr. Reverend Friend.
Well,
You need more respect, Gary.
Sorry, what was that, Gary?
You need to have more respect for Reverend.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And if I had, if there's any notion of disrespect, my goodness, shoot me in the face and call me a liver. The old saying.
None whatsoever.
The old
None
saying.
expected at all.
So, Mr. Friend, we're gonna punch you in the face with a question here. What would be your favorite type of Christmas tree?
Ooh. It's probably a blue spruce for me.
The prickly. You like the prickly type? It sounds like.
I don't mind that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that way the kids aren't going to touch all the bulbs. And you've always said that. You said, back in the days, you said if I ever grow up and I ever have kids, I'm going to have a blue spruce because they're not going to go near those bulbs when that thing's prickly.
Yeah, no kidding. And, well, you know what? I mean, I'll tell you, I thought one year about having maybe an orange tree or something like that, like something totally, carnivorous or something like that.
Oh, my goodness.
I thought, no, that's just a mistake.
Well, this is what an interesting thing to say, Mr. Friend, because we're just talking to Gary here, and Gary's actually he's been doing a maple tree for the last decade.
Oh, wow.
It's a symbol of strength in my home.
Yeah.
To Gary, it's a symbol of strength, Mr. Friend. Mr. Reverend Friend.
Have you turned them into any furniture then?
Gary?
Yes, actually, we do that in the new year. It's a tradition.
It sounds
That sounds great.
It sounds to me it's kind of like a family tradition, it sounds like, Mr. Friend.
Well, I make sure it has at least 25 branches, and we rub fresh branch a day as a count up to the Christmas day.
Oh, this is a great spot. Let's take a 2-second break. Let's listen to the Rub Fresh song because we haven't heard this for some time. So, sorry, Paul, he's not here. Paul's not here again, Gary. Paul never showed up, Gary. No offense to his family.
I think he's
an idiot.
he's preoccupied with something else. We'll talk about
He's an
that
idiot.
off air.
He's an idiot. Steph, if you can just put on the Rub Fresh song. We'll be back in 1 second.
Rub fresh and you'll feel real good. And rub slow just like you know you should. Just get a little grit and get a little wood. And rub fresh just like you know you should.
Thank you guys so much for coming back. I have Gary here, Gary Gilbert, obviously. I've got Gary on the show because he's a classic. And we've got a special guest for us once again. We got Mr. Reverend Josh Friend here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And he's staying silent as always. That's kind of how Gary is when it comes to all the fame. And Josh, why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because me and Gary, obviously, we struggle with. Gary struggles the most with the amount of fame that we got. And obviously, Josh, you've kind of manhandled the act of celebrity and fame, and your name's buzzing around Hollywood enough. Is this something, coming on our show, coming on Wood Enthusiasts, it's kind of a way to even more expose. It might be difficult for you with the kids, even more exposure,
Sure. Yeah, that is something that most voice artists have to deal with, is the exposure.
Yeah.
But I will say, I feel it's a chance to give back to something I really care about.
Sure.
So,
absolutely. And
so
hot.
I'm okay with that.
And you have lots of hot soups.
Oh, sure.
Isn't that right, Gary? Gary likes. I just wanted to bring that up because Gary was having hot soups for dinner, and I said, "Oh, you better believe Mr. Reverend Josh Friend likes hot soups because I grew up. I was in
barley.
Yeah, beef.
Reverend, could you do a commercial for soup for us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. What kind of soup is your favorite soup, Gary?
I do like mushroom, and I do like Thai.
A mushroom Thai. Okay.
So
mushroom Thai soup.
let's go ahead and do that commercial right now, Mr. Friend, and we'll have Steph edit it so she can put the music in.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, great. Let's do that.
What grows under trees and tastes amazing? What could you add to something hot and warm and make it good? How about a mushroom Thai soup?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Gary.
Bravo.
I'm actually sweating. I've got a little bit of sweat here. I'm sweating.
Spicy.
Mr. Friend, you've got
I'm actually cooking one right now.
What are you cooking there, Gary?
Oh, wow.
What are you cooking, Mr. Gilbert?
The mushroom Thai soup.
Oh my goodness.
No kidding. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Don't spill it on your leg. Yeah, Monica spilt some hot soup on her leg earlier this week, Josh. Mr. Friend. Reverend Josh Friend.
Watch out for that. Well, thank you for that.
She spilt a big bowl of hot soup.
We're liable to do such things.
So, Josh, me and Gary, obviously, there's some difficult things that we always have to discuss as kind of leaders of the community, and you know that you've been around here long enough to know that there's been some things going on here and there.
Wait, Larry.
Yeah.
I just got a cookie in my beard.
Oh my goodness, Gary, get that out of there, Gary. That's not clean.
Yeah. Continue.
That's embarrassing, Gary. Hey, Steph, can we edit that part out? Gary's being a little bit embarrassing. Steph? Thanks, Steph.
Continue.
Okay, so obviously we're gonna hit some road bumps. And Josh, I don't want to say this, but you've been roped into one of those road bumps. And this is embarrassing for me to say because you've done nothing but bring, so much kind of notoriety and fame and some of your own celebrity to our show. And what's happening here is not something I'm excited about, but it's happening.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So we've been trying to shield you from this, Mr. Friend, and here's basically the story. 2 episodes ago, there was a release of an episode that we had nothing to do with. Mr. Clutterbucks has been absent. He's been absent, and people are kind of concerned as to why. And I've alluded, to something other than what he's saying. But the facts are, he put out an episode called "Branching Out." Okay. In that episode, he claimed that you had read some poems and did some commercials and read some poems for him and had a conversation with him about our show, about you rather being on his show than our show. And I just wanted to clear some air here. I wanted to clear some air because I listened to that show, and Gary, you're going to say something here because Gary listened and he had a wince. He winced his eye and he kind of wrinkled his nose, and he said, Mr. Woodstone, something's very fishy here. That does not sound like Mr. Friend. That's what he said. He said Reverend Friend.
That's exactly what I said.
He said Reverend Friend. So Mr. Pastor Reverend Friend and Mr. Pastor Josh Reverend Friend, this is the issue. I'm wondering if you can speak to whether or not you were on that show. And this is not a position, believe me. Gary said, Larry, don't put Josh in this position. He feels very comfortable calling you that offset. Obviously, not publicly, He wouldn't say that, but he said, don't put him in this position. And I said, you know what, we have to. This is legal.
Yeah, understood.
This is legal now. Obviously, Mr. Friend, this is legal.
Yeah. So there are 2 things that I'd first like to say. Gary, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all that you say, especially being so thoughtful in how you refer to me and your friend. And I just want to say that I appreciate you, Larry. You're a wonderful man. Also, I don't know about this Clutterbuck because right now I'm not so sure as to how to respond. But just to say, that's an absolute fabrication.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
There's no truth to that at all.
Oh my goodness. This is heavy. This is very heavy. This is a heavy moment. You know, part of me, Josh, Pastor Reverend Friend, part of me in my heart wanted to say, okay, maybe this happened, but at the same time, knowing that you turned on us, it just didn't seem real. It didn't seem right, you know. And there was a deep voice, and there was it was kind of a fumbly poem. It wasn't a very good poem. It was a poem written by, you know, some man named Rob Bell, and it was really junk, is what it was.
Whoa. Okay. I see
never
what's going
doubted
on
for a
here a little
second.
bit. So what do we do here? I'm pretty sure, you know, from the Gospel of Matthew, we're supposed to kind of confront this gentleman directly.
And that's, you know, I'm so glad. Isn't it wonderful having a reverend on the show there, Mr. Gilbert?
Wow.
Straight from the heart of Scripture. And I was actually going to call Mr. Clutterbuck, but I was hoping that maybe I could keep you in the background for a minute until we can kind of confirm that that's what he was saying.
Sure, I don't mind. I will take it as a consultatory role and assume that some of my responsibilities will be to be called in if necessary, but otherwise I'll remain silent.
That's, oh, my goodness, this is working out better than Steph said it would. Steph said it would be very difficult for all of us. So I've got him coming on the call here. Just give me one moment. Just one moment, please.
Interesting fact is that bananas are curved because they grow towards the sun. Did you know that, Reverend?
Mr. Gilbert, Reverend's not available yet. Hello, Mr. Clutterbuck.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing not as good as I'd like to do, Mr. Clutterbucks.
That's weird. You're always in such a good mood.
You know, believe me when I say I usually am, because then that's what I like to portray. That's what I want people to hear and to see when they think of Mr. Woodstone. And it was interesting, Glenn, we were talking earlier about trees and about some of the favorite trees we like to bring in for the holidays. And obviously it's our favorite time of year where we get to bring trees, and you bring the whole forest into the house, as we say. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, you know, what kind of trees dry out earliest. And I said to Gary, who's on the phone here, I don't think he's not the talkative type, but he's on the phone. And he said, he said, this is kind of a topic for Mr. Clutterbucks because it comes to hydration. And I said, but first there's some things we have to discuss.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Clutterbuck, I've got a few questions for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd love to chat.
So we were listening to your podcast because it was on our station. It was on our forum, on our platform.
It's blowing up, Larry. I mean, I think it's going international.
Just hold on a second here. Mr. Clutterbuck. But I heard that you had Pastor Reverend Josh Friend on your show.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? I didn't even. He reached out to me, and he really was just enthused and excited, and he was just. It's amazing. What I found out is that he just loves. He loves water.
Just hold on a second. Hold on a second there, Glenn. So, Gary, how do you feel about that, Gary, Mr. Gilbert?
I feel that he's a liar.
So, Glenn, here's the problem. And believe me, I am not the type to want to call you a liar, because I have so much, I had so much respect for you for some time, for years and years and years and years and years and years. And you know that, Mr. Clutterbucks. We spent some time on the show together. We spent some time on the podcast, and we spent a lot of time just kind of embracing family life and just kind of living life together. Haven't we, Mr. Clutterbucks?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're getting at here.
Well, on the phone with us currently right now is Mr. Reverend Pastor Josh Friend. Josh, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, how's it going, Josh?
It's
not too bad.
It's Reverend.
Good to talk to you again.
It's Reverend Friend. Sorry, Glenn. It's Reverend Friend.
Reverend.
We're just so close.
So, Mr. Friend, I wanted to ask you a question, because I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just want you to answer some simple questions, questions like this. And Glenn, I'm sorry to say this, but we have Lisa here, and Lisa has her lawyer on speakerphone. So I just want to clear the air, because this is, like you said, it's blowing up. You're right, because this is blowing up into kind of a legal event, and that's not something we want to do. But Pastor Friend, can you tell me about the verse you mentioned earlier?
Well, I believe it's from Matthew chapter 18, talking about if you have a problem with your neighbor, with your brother, that you go to them directly. And so I just want to know what this is about. This is the first I'm hearing about this, Mr. Clutterbuck. Glenn, you want to clear the air here about what actually happened here? Did you find a different Reverend Friend, or is this just a blatant lie?
You know what? This is all malarkey. This isn't actually Josh Friend. This is an imposter.
No,
I can't believe the lengths that you guys have gone now to try to embarrass me. Josh called me up. He wanted to do a recording, and now you brought on an impersonator,
Glenn,
to try to say that I didn't have the authentic. And I even said on my show, I said this is real and authentic. And
what would your father say?
What makes it real and authentic?
What would Glenn Sr. say is an absolutely incredible question. Because
Great question.
What would your father say?
I'm not far from getting him on the line, and you know that, Glenn.
Yeah. I'm a father myself.
I have him on
I would
speed
just
dial.
be disappointed.
And Gary's here, and I don't even see him. He's on the phone, but I can tell that he's shaking in his boots. He's upset, and he's not upset. He's not angry upset, Glenn. He's not angry upset. He's hurt. And that's part of the problem we've got here, Glenn. You're hurting people's feelings.
We love you. Yeah.
Of course we love you, Glenn, Mr. Clutterbucks.
Yeah, well, you know what? I don't feel the love. I think that Gary, he's been saying a whole bunch of mean things about me, and he doesn't really care.
Don't you
And
dare
if I
say
were
that
to-
about
if
Mr.
I were to just show him a water chestnut tree, he would say that's not a real tree because the word water's in it, and I think that's ridiculous.
Mr.
I think it's
Stop
crazy.
it.
And-
Mr. Clutterbuck, sorry, you know what? This is the kind of reason we bring people like Reverend Josh Friend on to say, hey, we need some help in our relationships here, but if you're not willing to stop, and you're not willing to fess up to exactly what's going on here, Mr. Clutterbuck, I think we need to close the doors.
You know what? I'm branching out. I've branched out. You don't branch out. I branch out. Okay? See you later.
Oh, my goodness. And he hung up.
If it wasn't for the Reverend being on the phone, I would go off with my lips.
I know you'd probably use your swears. I've heard you use them before.
Yep.
I'll pray for you later, Gary. I'll pray for you.
You know what,
Thank you, Reverend.
Mr. Friend, this is a tough moment, and I think you need some space because you've had more than you needed to handle. You've had more than I asked you for. And that's not fair. That's not fair to bring you into a war zone and start just, hand you a gun and say, here's 6 bullets and go shoot what you can. That's not, the old saying. That's not fair to do that.
Yeah, but no, we are blessed to be a blessing, my friend. And Larry, I love what you do. I love Gary, and I love the work with wood. I mean, let's get the word out there, right?
Oh, unbelievable. That's exactly it. And that's why we're so, and I'm going to speak on behalf of Gary. He's probably going to say something, but we're so, and I like your word blessed. You're a man of scripture. You're a man that's, you're flipping the pages of scripture to live your day to day. And I think that's important. And I've said that, Gary, I've said that, you're living your life through scripture, and that's important. And what I like about you is you use the word blessed. And that's truly an honor. We are blessed to be here, to work on a show like this where we get to talk about what we're passionate about, and that's wood. And that's exciting.
I just want to let Reverend Josh know, may God bless and keep you, and may his face smile and shine upon you.
Oh, my God.
No, number 6. You got to love it.
I can feel the weight. Oh, that's another verse in scriptures.
Yeah.
Looks like Gary must have Googled some scripture there. And that's, that's not some, I can't remember that kind of stuff. We go to church every Sunday, obviously. And some of those,
It's deep in the roots, Larry. It's deep in the roots.
Mr. Friend, before I let you go, Pastor Friend, I think me and Gary talked about this for probably months ago, but we said we wanted to get you on here and talk about, in scriptures, there's a whole bunch of talk about trees.
Yeah.
That's right.
They talk about cedars of Lebanon. Cedars of Lebanon.
And the cypress tree.
Yep, and cypress trees and vines and branches. Yep, and
So,
roots and shoots.
I think it's important that we get you on here and we get a little further discussion because there's people out there that we need, trees are more than just life, but trees, obviously in this case, trees can be scripture at times. So we need to kind of look at the analogies being used.
I believe that the first story in the good book is about a tree.
Is that true, Mr. Friend?
There is a tree. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
I'd
The
love to
tree
know.
of the knowledge of good and evil.
Well,
That's right.
Before we kind of give it all away, let's put a pause on this and let's revisit this later because this is, when it comes to wood, this is the kind of information our people want to know. So thank you so much, Mr. Friend. I know we put you in such a terrible position, Reverend, but you handled it with grace and great aplomb, as you always do.
Well, I appreciate the encouragement. And hey, guys, just know that I'm always praying for you, and know that we love all the things that you're doing with wood. There's so many wonderful things that we need to keep telling people about the good news about wood.
Oh, isn't that true? Isn't that true? Thank you so much, Mr. Friend. We'll let you go, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, Gary. It looks like I just hung up on him a little bit, Gary.
Oh, He'll forgive you.
Oh, I'm just moving the computer. There's a little bit of shuffling. Lisa, hey Lisa, we need a soft pad. Gary, I've got to get a soft pad so when I move the computer around, it's not so loud. Gary, this was not an easy episode. You know, you've been telling me for years that Glen's kind of an offshoot of his own, and I didn't always listen. Oh, I just had a missed call there. That was from Alberta. Oh, that was probably Mr. Friend. Oh my goodness!
Reverend Friend.
I think I just accidentally hung up on Pastor Reverend Friend. But Gary, thanks again for hanging in there. I know it's been tough. And we've had some tough conversations and did some tough things. But I think you've really plowed through. Like you always say, you know, don't worry, I'll plow through. And you just do it so well.
Well, I do want to share something with our listeners just very quickly as we are entering the season where we are bringing trees into our home. This is the only time that I will say that you do need to keep them well hydrated, or else they will make a mess in your house. And if you don't have any water out of your taps, just know that during your lifetime, you will produce enough saliva to fill 2 swimming pools. So use that mouth.
Oh my goodness! Spit on the trees.
That's right.
Well, Gary, you get right back out there. I'm just going to end this episode. It's been a bit of a long one, but there was some heavy talk and good information there. So let's get back to this later, Gary. Have a great one, okay, bud? Right. Hey, bud. It's been great talking to you again, okay, pal?
Okay.
Okay.